Hey YouTube, welcome back to Red Cell Gorilla. What is going on, my nasty, dirty apes? Today we're going to go over Defeat BLU4 strategy. Our agenda is the disclaimer as always. Who again is BLU4? BLU4 violence. Can BLU4 be defeated? BLU4 organization and infrastructure, BLU4 operations, and becoming BLU4. A disclaimer, don't be that guy. The discussion in the slide deck, the conversation in the videos contained on this channel are not explicit directions and is only designed by Red Cell Gorilla to be informative and instructional for educational purposes only. Red Cell Gorilla is not telling viewers to do anything illicit or illegal or anything at all. This is simply a discussion based on materials that are open to the public. Most of what is discussed on this channel is an explanation of ATP 3-21.8, the Army Infantry Rifle Platoon and Squad. Now, who is Blue Force again? In war games, BLU4 is the good guy. For Red Cell, BLU4 is the bad guy. Blue Force is state recognized and backed by government administrations, being White Cell. They're well funded and well trained. That's it. You guys got that in the last video. Now, BLU4 violence. White Cell is pretty fucking smart. You as Red Cell and Green Force got indoctrinated to follow the rules so you don't question why any such rule is put in place in the first place. None of these rules or laws are even discussed anymore. Just, here's a bill, we'll push this bill through into law, and nobody even questions it. Even if it's inherently unconstitutional, such as a red flag law. You own guns? Well, Betty down the road, or any person, can say, I'm afraid so-and-so might hurt themselves or others. Later in the middle of the night, an armed and armored SWAT team is going to come to your door. You, being groggy, sleep-deprived, only know that some asshole broke into your door, and you go for a gun to protect yourself. And guess what? That is all Blue Force needs. Blam blam, and they get a bunch of medals for taking down old men trying to protect themselves in their own fucking homes. This legitimately happens all the time and doesn't end up on the news because it doesn't push the narrative. There are still plenty of Blue Forces killing civilians, armed and unarmed. And again, BLU4 is legally backed. The only backlash that is going to come from the media is if it pushes the narrative. If you think it's bad now, wait until the rioters and Antifa and all the little shits that hate you become the police. This has happened before. The brown shirts who removed the original German powers and authorities became the Nazi secret police later. Antifa is only going to be Antifa until it's time for them to be the one with a badge. They will have full government backing to search you out and kill you. You're not fighting them now, so why would you fight them in the future? No one is coming to save you, and you gotta save yourself. Your God is not coming to save you because he is expecting you to make the choice to defend yourself. That is what free agency is all about, is making your own choices. Now, can BLU4 be defeated? Yes, by directly targeting BLU4. Don't hang around a crime scene, but BLU4 must be targeted in several ways. First, give them an out, especially if you're cozy with BLU4 or any BLU4 members, or you have a buddy that's a cop. You need to let them know that, hey man, you're either with us at this point or you're against us, because we know that you're going to put your family first, and the money and how your family gets food, we know you're going to put your family first, and that's okay, right? We want you to put your family first, but it cannot be at the expense of Red Cell or Green 4 families. You got to give them that chance to get out and say, I have done everything in my power, wipe your hands clean of it, to save a life and save their lives, right? They see themselves as protectors, they just are not. What they are is the enforcement arm of the enslavers, right? That's just not how they see themselves. You're going to have to decide for yourself if your family is more important or if their family is more important. Because at the end of the day, their family is going to get food and your family is going to be on the bus or on the train, and you're not going to be seen or heard from again and probably removed from your family. Now, never attack them one-to-one and always use standoff, which is a concept we're going to go over in firefighting later. Always use 3-to-1 odds, meaning if that there is one BLU4 person, you have a minimum of 3 Red Cell people to take that one BLU4 person out. Never attack them on the street. If they are on duty and you need to unalive a BLU4 member, the best place is probably to attack them at their home after they've come off shift and are taking out the garbage. Okay, they gotta sleep at some point, and whenever they are sleeping, that's when you want to take them out. Military units are typically seen as more difficult, but let me give you some insight having been. Most National Guard units that would be deployed are not combat units. None of the Army Reserve units are combat units. They just don't have them in the Army Reserve. There's no infantry Army Reserve, right? I mean, there might be now, but there didn't used to be. Standoff is still a thing, and if they can't see you before you start shooting, you're going to be able to come out of that one on top. This is where tactics come in, but basically you want to attack when this is advantageous to you. If you think the military isn't going to take your shit, I've got one word for you. Katrina. They already took your stuff. They are not on your side. They are on the side that feeds them and pays them so they can get Mustangs, Dodge Chargers, Xboxes, and PlayStations. If they aren't even that well trained anymore overall, and they are going to do exactly what they are told to do. Now, some of the infantry units are pretty well trained, and definitely the soft units are well trained, but that doesn't mean that the units that you're going up against are going to be super well trained. They are not pipe hitters. BLU4 organization and infrastructure. Now, the BLU4 organizations that we're going to deal with are probably city municipal police, the county sheriffs, the state police, and federal level police. The sheriffs are the only constitutionally recognized and affirmed force. The military is always going to step on your rights, and we'll go over them in BLU4 organization in a later video. National Guard and Reserve have long been used against the American people for the purposes of white cell. Labs are probably the first thing on my list to destroy infrastructure-wise of the crime scene investigators, or just get rid of the crime scene investigator, because if this equipment is destroyed, it's very hard to make a case against ghosts. The county clerk offices, again, are probably a good idea to leave alone. You don't necessarily have to destroy those. Federal buildings. Timothy McVeigh that shit as much as possible and everybody in them. Anybody with a badge walking in and out of those buildings is definitely a military target. Weapons free that shit, which means if it's not you, weapons free means if it ain't you and you can't identify it as you as a Red Cell member, you fucking kill it. National Guard and Reserve armories. These are not manned all the time. You don't need to destroy them, and you don't need to destroy military bases, which would be really, really hard. And a lot of families live on those bases. We're not talking about bombing and blowing up bases. You don't need to destroy them. Just grab some bolt cutters and take some of the vehicles at work. Military vehicles require no keys other than to unlock the steering wheel chain, and you could probably use them better than the military is going to use them. Just remember that these vehicles are massive bullet magnets. Armories also have these other things inside of them called guns. You're probably not going to have ammunition inside of an armory, but you are going to have guns and other Class 2 items like gas masks and CBRN outfits, magazines, night vision devices, which you might not have like a whole lot of PVS-14s, but guess what? Unless you're a Special Operations Forces guy, you're not getting a PVS-14 that's white, phosphorus. They're all going to be green tube, but they're all going to be Gen 3, so better than nothing. And in some of the National Guard armories, it's probably going to be more like PVS-7. So think the Desert Shield, Desert Storm War, where you have a monocular tube that goes over both your eyes. It's a bino to mono, and they throw your depth perception off. Ask me how I know. But yeah, you're going to have something, and it's going to be better than nothing. All the cool stuff that the Army has, they're going to have it. Like I said, though, don't expect to get ammo from these places. There might be some in a storage yard, but that's going to be few and far between. White Cell and BLU4 do not want a repeat of Athens, Tennessee, 1948. Go ahead and look that up for your own little historical effort. However, a bunch of dudes who came back from World War II were a little pissed off that they were fighting for the freedom of other people and came back to Athens, Tennessee that was under the fascist control of some douchebag mayor. And those military members went out to the armory, which had guns and ammunition at the time, and fought the fucking police. They ended up winning. I think they injured 4 police officers. Nobody ended up being arrested because they were able to hold their own elections after. And that little fucking mayor, well, I think he went down to Florida or somewhere, but at least he was out of the area. And having that capital flight is something that we as Red Cell want. BLU4 operations, there's not a whole lot on here. BLU4 operations are not likely to change unless they are straight up attacked. Regular patrols and stealing of your money and making arrests. Investigations are going to end up being done by detectives, and National Guard and Army Reserve are going to be used to keep the peace anywhere that's getting too hot for the constables on patrol. So anywhere for the cops it's a little too hot, they're probably going to send in the nasty girls or the Army Reserve. Now, becoming BLU4. This is one of those weird things. After BLU4 is out of the way, there's going to be another power vacuum that's created, just like whenever you're getting rid of White Cell. However, you already have guns and are taking out the trash in a small area. Keep the phone lines working if you can and protect your county. And you might say, but there's not enough of us to keep the peace. This is a farce. Keeping the peace is completely different from enforcing laws. Folks who live near you and want to be trained to protect themselves but don't necessarily know how should get that training free from you. Or, maybe if a little bit of capital is involved, cool beans, I will show you how to do this, even though the dollar probably tanked, 10 years ago, and I need food, but I can show you how to protect yourself, right? You might be part of the new sheriff's department, but that is not the purpose of Red Cell. I want you as Red Cell, once you are done, go back to your regular, not necessarily your day job, because it might not exist anymore, but build your own business. Do something that is not keeping other people down, right? The biggest thing that you can do in the beginning, though, is public outreach and seriously just try not to kill anybody. This doesn't mean be unarmed, but it does mean that once the war is over, which again will probably be 20 years or so long, it does mean that once the war is over, we're trying to save as many human lives as possible. If you can, go back home, try to forget the war, and do your best to be a godly man. Ensure everyone who wants a gun or wants to train to use a gun is allowed to. You can have somebody train on your own weapons, just don't give them one if you can't afford to give them one. Remember, we already went over destroying prisons in a previous video. And yes, there might be bad guys with guns or without guns out there, but if you ensure that all the good and normal people have guns as well, you're probably going to find that most of the criminal element who doesn't like a fair fight is going to flee. Once they see somebody might be able to kill them or has the ability to kill them, they don't want any part of that. They want to be in Boston, they want to be in Chicago, they want to be in Los Angeles, where they know nobody else is allowed to have a gun but me, or it's at the very least very, very hard to get a gun aside from me, because I'm going to do it anyway, because I don't care if I'm breaking the law. I'm breaking the law on purpose so I can get money that way, right? They don't care about that. But once they see that there's an armed populace, it's kind of going to be like the dude who showed up with a shotgun in a gas station with old Florida Man, and Florida Man was like, yeah, we don't fucking play that shit. Get out of here, homeboy, or I'm going to get you gone. Right? And that criminal turned real polite, real fast. Hey man, I'm just here. Yeah, sure you are. Anyway, civilian radio and defense programs are already in use, but they are very restrictive. Just get rid of the restrictions. You aren't going to know what you don't know, and a lot of Green Force is probably going to help you. And if you are allowing them to be way more free than the previous, administration, we'll call it that, then they will gladly come to you with their problems. They want to have you help them fix their problems, right? It doesn't necessarily mean, hey, here's free money, but it does mean that, hey, let's all make this work together. Now, lastly, do not allow other BLU4 to operate in your county, ever. We're talking like the counties surrounding your area, the states, and the nation have probably just had a very violent breakup. And just because you're keeping in line with the Constitution doesn't necessarily mean that they are keeping in line with the Constitution. Build a new court that follows only constitutional law and charge criminals with their crimes fairly. A according to our Constitution, we are all innocent until proven guilty. So unless you have undeniable reasonable proof, that person is assumed to be innocent. However, there are 3 cardinal sins that you must execute, and probably publicly execute, bad guys over. Murder 1, right? Premeditated murder. Now I'm saying, because you're already doing this during the war, right? But that is because we have no other means, right? But once we come back to following a good system, murder 1, premeditated murder, that's just a, hey, do we have all the undeniable reasonable proof? Cool beans. He needs a high drop and a short stop, right? That's it. Rape. I don't care if it's rape against dudes, rape against women, doesn't matter. Same exact thing. Child molestation and child rape, right? I mean, it's just child rape. Let's call it what it is. Let's not say, oh, molestation, because it sounds less harsh than rape. That is a harsh action. And harsh action must be taken against a person who is able to do that. Those 3 sins are the things that you must execute evil people over. And this is the real last thing. Sage dad advice. Right? And I know I just talked about getting rid of a lot of people, and that's bad stuff, but we're just in that position where we're going to have to, or we're going to be the ones to die. After this is over, do everything in your power to personify Christ, but realize that natural men are the enemy of Christ. If they harm other humans after this war, they are going to need to be held accountable by men. You can still forgive someone and absolve them of their sins in your heart and in your mind and bring them to justice with a mortal death, because they were found to be untrustworthy with the lives of others. It is required for us to forgive, yes, but you can forgive the dead while ensuring that they do no more harm to the living. In conclusion, we've gone over the disclaimer as always. Who's BLU4 again? BLU4 violence? Can BLU4 be defeated? Yes, it can. BLU4 organization, BLU4 operations, and becoming BLU4. That is all I've got for you guys today in transmission.